welcome back to the Space Creative Show. This is episode 42. Happy New Year. I hope you had a fabulous Christmas, or at least one with not too many family arguments or drama. So, it's January again, and it's very snowy. It was -6 degrees this morning, and it has been snowing for most of the morning, which is glorious here in Oxfordshire. Very icy. The nursery run was a very slow one this morning, but it is January. And if you're being honest with yourself, you've probably had the same thought that you have every year. The new year, new me spin. This year will be different. New goals, new intentions. You've probably bought a new planner. Am I wrong? The promises to yourself and the shiny start, and then the exact same pattern that you've been on for years. And yet you want to change. You're not here for surface level fluff. You're sick of the half-hearted goals and empty January energy. So today we're talking about why you keep setting the same goals every January and why they keep quietly falling apart a few weeks or even days into it. It's not because you lack discipline and willpower, and it's definitely not because you just need to try harder. It's because you are trying to reinvent your life, literally reinvent, overhaul everything, do all these crazy things without actually reinventing you. This is about identity. And once you understand this, things actually start to change and work. We will get into that in a second. But first of all, I apologize if you can hear any noise. There are builders outside. They are putting a big old shed thing outside, literally outside this window. And if you're on YouTube, you will see that I am somewhere else. So this is the Airbnb. Very long story. I actually can't remember if I've mentioned anything about this on the podcast, really, but I basically had to rent out an Airbnb for my office, and it was actually a flat. And then, yes, obviously I temporarily moved into my mum's house after I sold my house after the separation, and it was only supposed to be for a couple of months, but then it was longer. It just really did not work, and my energy was getting seriously affected. There was a lot going on behind the scenes that you guys did not know about. So yes, me and Ottie moved in, and it's very little, and it's definitely not my brand color scheme, if you can see that on YouTube. And if you are not watching on YouTube and you're listening on the podcast, we are on YouTube as well. So please go and subscribe on YouTube. I will be so grateful. And yeah, you can watch it if you want to. So why the same goals keep coming back every year? The truth is, you don't create change from motivation. You create change from your self-concept. So you can want a calmer, easy to tidy home with more peace, more time, better boundaries, less stress, a healthier body, more confidence, better money habits, all of it, right? Whatever you want. But if the way that you see yourself and feel about yourself hasn't actually changed, your behavior will always revert back to what feels familiar and normal. Your brain is wired for efficiency and safety, not for transformation. So when January arrives and you try to leap into this sensational new version of yourself, your highest self, without updating any of the internal rules that you live by, the old patterns will just jump back in very, very quickly. And it will also feel so hard, like literally so hard. I'm sure you've probably tried to change or do something before without doing this work. It's so hard. It literally feels horrendous. Whereas when you do the work, it feels so much easier, and it feels, it gets to feel natural. So, you can say, I want X, Y, and Z all day long. But if your default is still, I'm someone who procrastinates, gets overwhelmed easily, or just can't do it, nothing's going to stick. And that's exactly why every January feels like Groundhog Day. And that's not failure. It is simply psychology. So this is where decluttering really becomes far more than tidying, because your home quietly mirrors who you believe you are and what you're worthy of or not. And that can sometimes be hard to hear. And we often don't want to believe it. And we often don't like hearing it, but it is true. It's showing what you're tolerating and what you're settling for, what you're putting off or avoiding completely, and what you're still carrying around long after it stopped serving you out of habit, guilt, or fear of what it would mean to let it go. Every object you keep is connected to a decision, or a decision you didn't make. And when your environment is full of old versions of you, it becomes very hard to consistently show up as the woman that you say that you want to be. And that's why decluttering works so powerfully when it's done with intention, because it interrupts the loop. It gives your nervous system evidence that actually something has changed. And that's when your habits begin to shift without forcing them and without it feeling really hard. One of the most powerful tools I use with my high-level business coaching clients inside Pro Organizer Academy to really accelerate that shift is a letter to their future self. We don't just do strategy here. It's a holistic approach. We focus so much on mindset and self-concept because that is really what you need to do to actually create the change and to create the success you want, right? Whether that's in business or your career or just in general life, you have to do that work first. And it feels hard. It feels counterproductive. Like I actually just spoke on Pro Organizer Academy Instagram stories earlier about this because it does. We feel like as people, we love the dopamine hit of like ticking something off the list. And so when you work on this like deeper stuff, do the inner work, it feels as though you're not getting anywhere or you're not like achieving anything fast or you can't physically see the results because obviously if you've had decades of social conditioning, all these limiting beliefs that we've harbored over the years, it takes a minute to change that, right? It's not going to happen overnight. So whilst it takes longer, you actually are going to get better results overall. And also, it doesn't take that long. I mean, when I first started listening to sleep affirmations, I think it was in September 2024, literally the first night I listened to one, it was like an 8-hour sleep affirmation track just on YouTube. And I woke up the next day and I can't even explain it, but I actually felt like a different person. Obviously not fully, but like I woke up and I was like, oh, I feel different. Like I feel really different. I felt way more positive. It was just so crazy. Anyway, that's kind of where a lot more of this started more deeply anyway. So it can work really, really quickly. And it will if you put the work in. But anyway, I will tell you more about that in a sec. But let's just talk about what actually gets in the way of becoming that version of you in the first place. So most New Year's resolutions are nothing more than rules that you've just scribbled down whilst you're still surrounded by the same cluttered life that you say that you want to change. So you tell yourself you'll be more organized, more consistent, or more disciplined, whatever it is, while still trying to operate in the same mess, the same distractions, the same mental load. So, of course, it's not going to stick. The environment is screaming at you while you're desperately trying to act like this new version of yourself. So the pressure builds, you waver, the motivation fades, the momentum goes. And then comes that same old narrative, the gremlin voice in your head saying, see, I never stick to anything, or whatever the story is that you're telling yourself. And that story, which is probably a perpetual story that you have, that story is far more damaging than the physical clutter itself. But the problem isn't that you can't do it and you're set to feel like a failure forever. The problem is that the change never started with who you're becoming. It started with high pressure, task list, totally unrealistic for where your current thoughts, beliefs, and identity are at. Real change actually happens when you stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, who am I becoming? Or who do I need to be to create whatever it is that you want, right? What would the person who has that, what would they do every day? What are their habits? What is their routine? What do they not do? You need to get really honest with yourself and work that out, because I can guarantee that that person, the person that you want to be, who achieves everything you want, does not wake up and get on their phone and scroll Instagram or TikTok or whatever for an hour in the morning and then make themselves late, or all of these different things, like any like bad habits you've got. Right? And the thing is as well, when I say this, it doesn't mean you have to change everything overnight. It just means that you need to get clear, right? You need to gain clarity, because if you're not clear, how do you do it? It's hard. So that's the shift. And that's why identity-based work is everything. And why that letter to your future self I mentioned is not fluff. It's a tool that helps to change things properly. It's a starting place. Yeah. It helps you to visualize it and really step into the mindset, the energy, and get pure clarity of the version of you who already lives the life you want. Right. And I did this because the things that I have now, I used to want. They used to be on my vision board. I used to be thinking about them all the time. But I had to change who I was. Not totally change my personality, but I had to change what I was doing, what I was available for, habits, bad habits, what have you, to do that. And it requires getting honest with yourself. But it's amazing. And life is so much better when you allow it to be. And it stops this endless cycle of setting goals from the wrong starting point. If you've never done it before or you've never done it properly, you will want to get your hands on the version I give to my clients. And it's inside my 2026 Kickstart Decluttering Success Bundle. Because once you actually prioritize setting aside time, sitting down, writing that letter to your future self in a calm way with proper time to think, without your kids shouting at you, and not just as a random journaling prompt, but with real intention, like real thought. And when you actually give yourself time, because we're all so busy, we never literally give ourselves time to do things like this, because again, it feels like it's counterproductive, but it's not. When you do that, something actually shifts in your brain. Trust me. I didn't want to believe it. When I first started doing all this work, I literally did not want to believe it because it just does not feel productive. And I mean, I am like freaking on it all the time. You know, I'm like the bloody Tasmanian devil. I don't stop. I don't sit down. Like I'm always doing stuff. I always want to be productive and working or whatever it is. I find it very hard. And so I literally was like, no, I don't want to do any of this. Well, that's why I was stuck for like years and years and years and years and years before I actually took all this stuff seriously that we think is woo woo and wishy washy. But actually, it's like so ancient. It's literally all of this stuff is forever, right? It's been around forever, but we think it's magic. Anyway, I was very, very closed-minded back in the day. I had a very bad fixed mindset, very negative. And just because it doesn't feel as productive as ticking off tasks on a to-do list, it is far more transformational. You stop setting goals like, oh, I want to be more organized. And you start asking, what would the organized version of me actually do on a Monday morning or a Sunday night to get organized for Monday morning, right? You stop saying, oh, I just want a calmer or tidier home, and start catching yourself mid-scroll thinking, actually, I don't need to buy that random storage basket I just saw on TikTok Shop. It's the clarity that changes your energy. And once you can clearly see the woman you're trying to become, what she thinks, how she spends her time, what she prioritizes, whether or not she invests in herself or whether she buys stuff, you start doing these things without having to overthink them, without feeling overwhelmed. You're not forcing yourself to be better. You're just being the person you were always meant to be. And it starts with one small decision and one small decision at a time, not trying to do everything at once, just starting. Like, it's so much better to do one small thing every day than a million things for 3 days and then giving up for the rest of the year. And this is the power of mindset and self-concept work when it's done right. It removes the resistance. It makes it easier to do the thing, right? Whether that's decluttering the hallway, setting a boundary, or saying no to the just in case junk, or achieving all the goals that you want, right? Like whatever it is. So if you're fed up with resolutions that fall apart by mid-January or even sooner, and you're ready to actually step into a year where your actions actually match the woman you say you want to be to achieve all of those amazing goals that you've got for yourself, the 2026 Kickstart Decluttering Bundle is your first move. We will pop it in the link in the show notes down below on the podcast episode if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, or also in the YouTube description as well. You can see it there if you're watching, and you will have immediate access to jump in. Because the thing is, you are already a legend, right? You don't need a new personality, don't need more willpower. And you definitely don't need to punish yourself into change. This isn't about taking away. This is about adding to your life. This is about adding better. But you do need less noise in your home, way less tabs open in your overstimulated brain, and a clear path to the right practical and energetic identity mindset work to create the environment that actually supports the version of you you're becoming and not the version you're trying to leave behind. This year doesn't need to be busier, harder, or louder. Unless you want it to be. It needs to be more intentional. And if you're ready to step into that, it starts here. So thank you so much for being here and listening in. Have a gorgeous week, and I will see you next Wednesday for a new episode of the Space Creator Show.